considering all the stuff that was ballyhooed about the Chargers defense coming into the game, about how they had neutralized Denver and holding them under 400 yards total in the previous 2 meetings this season. You look at the performance yesterday and you say Peyton Manning played a pretty damn good game. It's just that when I look at New England and what I saw from New England, when I look at San Francisco and what I saw from San Francisco, when I look at Seattle and what I saw from Seattle, I'm saying to myself, excuse me, you're going to have to face at least 2 of those teams in order to win the Super Bowl championship. And when I look at that based on what Peyton Manning did yesterday, I would say no. You're not, if you're the Denver Broncos, you're not winning the Super Bowl unless Peyton Manning resembles the Peyton Manning that we saw throughout most of the season, the guy that broke the single-season TD record, surpassing Tom Brady, the guy that surpassed Drew Brees, single-season passing yard record, the guy that dropped 51 on Dallas, that ran all over the Philadelphia Eagles. That's the guy that you need to see. That's the offense. I shouldn't just say him, but I'm just, he's the captain. I'm not saying just him, but that offense is what you need to see in order for the Denver Broncos to capture the Super Bowl title this year. If it's just about Peyton Manning looking the way that he looked yesterday, didn't play a bad game, was efficient, no doubt about it. But at the same time, you're going to need the offense to be a juggernaut because that defense is not going to hold somebody scoreless for 3 quarters the rest of the way. I don't see that happening.
So now, hold on just a second here. Aren't the Denver Broncos your Super Bowl pick?
No, my Denver Broncos is my pick to go
to get to the Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
So is this a classic case of you stealing a page out of my playbook, trying to sort of undersell the chances of the Broncos
Not
now
at all.
as the Patriots come to town? The Patriots have to now go to Denver.
Is that a rhetorical question, or do I get to answer?
You get to answer.
All right.
You better answer.
First of all, number one is I don't need to take anything out of your playbook. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, and more importantly, I appreciate you acknowledging that is something you do because I've been saying it for the longest time.
You've been calling me on it for 5 years.
Number three, and more importantly, the question was based on what we saw yesterday. So what I am saying to you is I believe that Denver is going to the Super Bowl because I don't believe that same offense will show up against New England next week. I think they'll be more potent against New England next week. I think Peyton Manning will put up bigger numbers next week than he did yesterday against San Diego. I'm simply saying you can't be what you were yesterday and beat New England or Seattle or San Francisco. That's all I'm saying.
Really? I got the feeling that yesterday the Broncos played their Super Bowl at home. I got the feeling that everybody rose to the occasion and played an all-out, all-or-nothing kind of game where the offensive line protected like crazy. Peyton wasn't sacked one time. The defense just rose up and suffocated San Diego's offense until they lost their best cornerback, Chris Harris Jr., early in the third quarter, which opened up the fourth quarter for Phillip Rivers.
Right.
But that crowd yesterday, that was like, and I think our old friend Woody Page implored them in the Denver Post yesterday, the crowd, to take it back up to the good old days decibels, the mile-high madness decibels.
That's what Woody does.
What's that?
That's what Woody does.
That's what Woody does. Well, I think it worked because, again, I'm just hearing it through TV, but San Diego was completely discombobulated by the crowd. 5 neutral zone infractions in one game? Are you kidding me? More than any game this whole regular season?
That's right.
So, to me, it felt like, we did it. We finally got there. We won our Super Bowl. But wait a second. Now we have to play another game to get to the Super Bowl? Really? That's what I got going for me.
I didn't get that from it at all. I didn't get that from it at all. I think that San Diego's offense struggled miserably for the first 3 quarters. Denver's defense rose to the occasion. They deserve a lot of credit for that. But I think all the talk coming into this game, everybody forgot that just like San Diego had its way to some degree defensively against the Denver Broncos, the fact is that if Peyton Manning is supposed to be as brilliant as we all say and swear that he is, then obviously going up against the San Diego Chargers twice gave him material, gave him ammunition. You have to take those things into consideration as well, not to mention the fact that a guy in McCoy, your head coach, was the former offensive coordinator in Denver last year. He's very, very familiar with Peyton Manning, and so you take all of those things into consideration, and there's just no way to escape the fact that it was going to be tough at the very least. But in the end, what the Denver Broncos showed you is that it can be just as tough for San Diego, if not more so, than it is for them. And that's why they handled their business for those first 3 quarters. Now, they collapsed a little bit in the fourth quarter, gave up 17 points, no doubt, made it a bit more interesting than it should have been. But in the end, Denver controlled the game. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, we didn't see their offense be what we're accustomed to seeing it be throughout this season.
Through the first 3 quarters, you believe in that Phillip Rivers had thrown for a total of 44 yards. Now, that had something to do with the fact that they were trying to run the ball.
And Cromartie,
he was back.
Yes, he was back. He was blamed. He was locking them down. Everywhere they threw the ball, whoever he was guarding, I mean, this guy had them on lockdown for those first.
Then what happened in the fourth quarter?
Previous meeting.
What happened in the fourth quarter? No Chris Harris. All of a sudden, Quentin Jammer at age 34 had to try to cover somebody. Often it was Keenan Allen. And what happened? Phillip Rivers went 11 for 15 for 173 yards in the fourth quarter alone. Right. 2 touchdowns and a QBR of 93.7. Through the first 3 quarters, his QBR on a scale of 0 to 100 was 2.4. That's how big a deal that losing Harris Jr. was. Okay. And he's gone, so that's where you should be concerned. Not about Peyton, but about that.
I am concerned, but at the same time, I've seen Denver's defense look so putrid on so many occasions throughout this season, and Peyton Manning and that offense come to the rescue because they're putting up big numbers. I think that's what's going to be required. So again, Chris Harris is gone, and so what happens? What happens is that all of a sudden Phillip Rivers goes berserk. We understand that, but you still have to put up points. And if you put up points, that's Denver's lone chance. That's why I believe they'll go to the Super Bowl, but I never said they'd win it.